Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sagittarius August 2021 Self-Connection Reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and Meaning-Based Spiritual Coaching Services. I am Lauren. Hi and welcome. So this is one of 3 connection readings that I complete for each sign each month that's meant to bring awareness to your unique internal authentic self and how that connects to your external environment, which includes other people as well. And this is really in an effort to help you find your specific authentic place and purpose so that you can also connect to the feelings of emotional fulfillment and happiness and purpose that come when you are able to see where you as an authentic individual belong. All right, so all of my readings focus on utilizing the Triad of Engagement, which is a coaching tool I've developed that focuses on utilizing the 3 principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation, and showing how when you work with them in their highest states, they help you unlock awareness of your unique internal authentic self and keep that engaged in an authentic way with your external environment and with your interpersonal connections so that you're able to not only truly live into life authentically, but you're also able to elevate and be of service to the collective human experience at the same time. All right, so we're going to pull a card here. It's a Power of Surrender card for the principle of curiosity. And this is going to start off the reading with a question. We're going to take a look at the energies of the card, build a question around it. And this is going to be kind of your point of reference for the month of August to really utilize the question to bring awareness to your internal self. So, this is a self-connection reading. We start with the self-connection reading at the beginning of the month because it's really the whole purpose of being able to engage authentically with your external environment. It has to start with you understanding who you are authentically. So awareness starts with the self, and then we build on that. So then in the second week of the month, we have our the spiritual connection reading, where we take a look at how you connect that internal self to your external environment. And then we have our love connection reading, which shows how you are currently connecting to the general energy of love as well as romantic love. And that one's a little bit more freeform. It kind of wraps up the month in a holistic way for you to kind of get this feeling of keeping you on track, keeping you on your path, and really keeping you self-aware. So let's see what comes out for you. So when we're working with the principle of curiosity, we are stepping into the principles of optimism, openness, and receptivity. And when we're shining that light inwards, so we're using curiosity instead of how we normally use it, which is to be curious about our external environment, we're shining it inwards towards ourselves. This is where we get a chance to really break through those barriers that we create between us and our own self-awareness, where as we get older, we start to become a little more pessimistic instead of optimistic, where we build in the beliefs that certain aspects of ourselves maybe aren't meant to be shared, or that we get to a place where we feel that we are just the way we are and we can't change, or where we stop being open and curious about aspects of ourselves that perhaps we don't even know are there. So we're using curiosity to help open that bridge between a lack of awareness of self and a full awareness of self. So let's see, Sagittarius, what do we have as your opening point of awareness? You guys are very quiet. So when I was sitting with your energy before diving into this reading, I saw a red ribbon stretched, and I instantly thought of a finish line. I saw somebody running through it, kind of similar. I know the Olympics are on right now, so kind of similar as to how you would imagine somebody crossing the finish line, but in a kind of more theatrical way and breaking through that red ribbon. And I get this feeling with you that there's this element of this month of movement, of crossing the finish line, of seeing something true fruition within. So this is when we're thinking about your energy, we're thinking about it from an internal perspective. So this isn't perhaps about so much the outward pushing of you moving in your external environment. This is more about, on some level, inside of yourself, you're crossing a finish line. And that can look like perhaps you've been working with a change of perspective towards something in your life, be that your family life, your work life, or some other aspect of self. And now you're getting to that point where you're finally able to kind of come to completion with whatever aspect of self you have been working with up to this point to change. So, for the month of August, Sagittarius, we have surrender denial. And it says, accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties. Then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions. And what's interesting is that I was seeing you guys cross this finish line, and then I'm seeing this image of this woman here who is blindfolded. And there's almost this juxtaposition of somebody who perhaps doesn't even realize she might walk through that ribbon and cross that finish line and not be able to see it because she's almost in denial of where she is and what's happening within her. Now, obviously, this is a general reading, so when I'm saying her, I'm just making reference to the image, but obviously this can apply to anybody watching. So what I'm picking up intuitively is that there's this quality, Sagittarius, that I think you guys have been on an internal journey. And there's an element about yourself that now you are ready to grow into. And you are crossing that finish line. You are taking that step towards emotional and spiritual growth. And often that's difficult for us to see, to actually see physically. It's very easy for us when we're growing on a physical level for us to realize that. That can look like us deciding to get back into shape when we're going to the gym, and suddenly we can physically see that we're getting more in shape or not in shape. Or even on a mental level, sometimes it's easier for us to realize on a mental level when we've made a growth point, because it's easy for us, let's say we're going back to school and we're learning a new topic, and we can actually go back and through taking tests and through writing essays, we can see where we started to now the knowledge we've accumulated. So even on a mental side, it's very easy to track growth. But on a spiritual and an emotional side, that's very difficult, because these are things that are so specific to us. It's very difficult to have some type of form of measurement to say, oh, you've spiritually grown into more of who you were meant to be, because there really is no measurement. There is no comparison. We're each on our own path, and we each have our own relationship, unique relationship with the divine. So there is this quality here of you perhaps not understanding just how far you've come and grown on an emotional and a spiritual level. And you are at this point of growth. And it is going to create change with inside. It's going to create some aspect that will now actually be seen through your actions. And I think that's really where the surrender denial comes into, is that as you go through this month, you're going to start to feel and notice that emotional and spiritual growth. Now that can be very difficult to explain to people or to, again, this can come out in various ways that might kind of shock us, and it might shock others around us. This is when all of a sudden if you have ever been around somebody who's had one of those moments in their life, like a breakthrough moment where they change something radically in their life, where they perhaps go from being somebody who is very, let's say, material focused to all of a sudden they're the ones telling you that they're selling everything and they're going to travel the world for the next year and a half, and they no longer want to have all these belongings again. Or they are the person who all of a sudden had always had one perspective, had always seen the world in one specific way, and suddenly, through some shift that they've gone through internally, they come to the table with a completely different perspective. This can be a change in a political view and a change in a religious view, or just a set belief system. And for the outsider looking in, it's very difficult to understand, well, where did that come from? How could you just kind of wake up one day and all of a sudden have this different perspective? But I think that's what you're going through, Sagittarius. And you don't quite understand that until, again, you kind of wake up, cross that finish line, and it's like, oh, I see the world differently now. I see an aspect of myself differently now. And that's going to start to be shared this month. So in understanding that, that's when we can actually start to kind of butt heads a little bit with those around us, or we start to second guess ourselves, and we kind of go into this place of denial where we almost don't want to see or understand that growth has happened. It would be similar to if as a child we went through a growth spurt and we didn't want to admit that we couldn't wear the same smaller clothes anymore, and so we just kept wearing these smaller clothes, and they get tighter and tighter and tighter until finally you're forced to face the denial you've been in, that you can't button those pants anymore and that shirt doesn't fit over your head, and you've grown. There's a little bit of this Alice in Wonderland component coming through for me right now. And I think for you, Sagittarius, that's your point of curiosity. Where on an internal level have you outgrown and changed some aspect of self that had previously been a staple, whether it's a belief or a perspective or an emotional tie to something, and suddenly now you're going to kind of cross that finish line and come out and realize, wow, you can't run a race backwards. I've crossed the finish line and I'm here, and now I have to step fully into this new version of myself. And when it says, accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties, then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions. So there is going to be this component that with this change of perspective, or this change in belief, or this change in even just your emotional tie to something, that there's a possibility it could create a little bit of friction in your life. And so to build in that question to yourself as we're bringing awareness. So the first question is going to be, what aspect of self, both either on an emotional or a spiritual level, has changed internally this month? And the second follow-up question is going to be, where is that going to create a potential difficulty in your life currently? Now, this could look like, this could be as big of a change as maybe perhaps you've always followed one religion and you grew up with that and you followed it, and suddenly all of a sudden you realize, well, this no longer holds value for me. I don't actually believe in these tenets anymore. Well, that's going to have a big impact as you start to take action from that place, because when we're working with ourselves authentically, we can't ignore those types of realizations. and changes within us, we do have to then start to act on them, because this is what's keeping us authentically tied to our place and purpose. So maybe having a religious tie up to this point was what you needed. And now this change in perspective is now the next phase of the evolution of this belief. And it can't be ignored, because the longer you ignore parts of yourself like that, that's really where we become disconnected. That's really where we start to act out of alignment with ourselves, and then not only confuse ourselves, but confuse those around us. Because that's when we start to do something. So let's say it is walking away from a religion, and maybe we are tied to, wherever you choose to worship, and you're in these activities, and suddenly you're performing these activities, but because they don't hold value for you anymore, or you're no longer believe in some of these tenets, you're not coming across as supportive as you had been previously, which is going to be confusing naturally for the people in this setting. Or as well to yourself, where you're going to be getting frustrated that you now have to spend time, your own valuable time, how you bring in value from spending your time, doing something that no longer holds value for you. Now, to get away from religion, because I know that can be a hot button topic, but let's just say this is a basic perspective in just how you see yourself. Maybe suddenly, up until this point, you had held a long-running belief that you could not work for yourself. That job security was one of the tenets that held value for you in your life. It was the backbone of you being able to have an emotional tie to security. It was the backbone to your spiritual tie to how you kind of saw yourself, your place and purpose. Maybe you really did enjoy your career as you moved in a specific industry. But now suddenly you realize that you can't deny the fact that you have this newfound confidence in self to start your own business. And suddenly your perspective on what had always given you an emotional level of fulfillment through security and a spiritual level of fulfillment through the work that you were doing, suddenly these things don't hold value anymore to yourself. And so this might look like now taking action towards feeling into that level of confidence of, I can do this on my own. And I might want to pursue some other avenue that has nothing to do with the work I've done previously, and nothing to do with the security I found so important in my 9-to-5 job beforehand. And now I feel the need to go out on this next adventure and pursue working for myself. Now, that can present difficulties. So that's really where you're being asked this month to be curious about taking stock of the reality of what it's going to take from this point forward, what it's going to change in your life. That, yes, waking up from one day to the next with with a change in perspective or belief is going to probably create some type of a little bit of a pushback, because we can't control others, and we can't control how the external environment responds to where we choose to take action. So you might tell your significant other, I'm leaving my place of work and I'm going to start out on this next adventure and become a business owner. And your significant other might look at you like, wait, what? But we need this steady income, and you always loved this career path, and I don't understand. I don't understand where you're coming from. And that's where Sagittarius, it's on you to step into that place of really digging deep to understand that part of yourself now that's changed is part of your growth, And that's where that confidence, as we move into courage, in our next card here, is going to, it's really where you can dig into finding that courage to take action, to then say, well, sweetheart, I feel like this is part of my evolutionary growth, and I really hope you can support me on this. But it might also take us sitting down together, and instead of me just denying that this is actually going to impact our financial bottom line for a while, that we sit down and we talk about it and we discuss it. And we look at the reality of how this will impact the bottom line. I'm not going to deny the fact that this is a change I want to make and an action I want to move towards for myself, but I'm also not going to be in denial that this is going to have an effect both on myself and my external environment, but as well as maybe a shared environment, like with a spouse or a significant other, and then continue to move forward from there. So that's really what I'm feeling for you guys, is building in that question as to what part of your internal self, emotional and spiritual, has changed. And then how is this going to, looking through the eyes of truth, taking the blindfold off and realizing how far you've come and giving yourself that kudos, now you've come that far. Well, now what is the reality and how is that going to change your environment? And where are you going to really step into owning this new version, this new perspective of self in some capacity? How are you going to really step into that to be able to push past these possible barriers? Because it really is in meeting challenges where we get a chance to flex those wings. So I almost get this feeling that you guys are kind of going through this, from the caterpillar to the butterfly stage, to where, again, kind of like where you can't run a race backwards. You can't cross the finish line and be like, wait, I'm going to go run back to the start and somehow erase all how far I've come. And it doesn't work that way. This is kind of the same with going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Once the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, it's not like the butterfly can all of a sudden be like, oh shoot, I'm scared of flying and I'm gonna just go back into the cocoon and become the caterpillar. It doesn't work that way. It's the evolutionary growth, and everything moves in one direction. And so that's where you are at this point. That, like, it's almost like once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's out of the bag. So it really is about owning that, realizing about that, but that in now meeting the challenges that are going to be coming into your external environment around this internal change, that's where you really get a chance to see what this part of yourself really is all about. You get to flex those muscles or utilize those wings for the first time. All right, Sagittarius. Now I'm going to pull a card. So we are pulling a spirit animal oracle card for the concept of courage. And courage is our seat of self-empowerment. This is where we get a chance to have the courage to make the decision to take action on behalf of our own authentic self. And this is important because, kind of like what I was saying earlier, when we choose not to act in alignment with ourself at any given time, we should always be, even in the smallest of decisions, really bringing those decisions back to self and how well you're honoring yourself, your authentic self at any given moment. That this is where we have the ability to really evolve and bring the positive change that we want to see, that we feel inside. We get to manifest that externally. And it's not through us forcing something in our external environment to change or trying to force and control another to change, because we can't do that. That's beyond our control. What is within our control is to act in alignment with self, so that the more you take actions that come from a place of awareness, the more you start to actually see yourself reflected you're living yourself into life. You're manifesting yourself basically into life. And that's what you get. That's when you start to feel like things are in alignment, things are in flow. So let's see, what does Sagittarius need to know about their seat of courage and acting on this new perspective shift? This is going to be an exciting month for you, Sagittarius, I feel. When we get to this point of emotional and spiritual growth, this is where the next chapter begins. And I just got goosebumps saying that. So this is quite a big deal for you guys. Let's see though if we can get a spirit animal or there. Oh. Well, this card just really goes right in here. So we have antelope spirit, number 2, and it says life is speeding up. And I feel that. That's exactly what I was just saying, and that's exactly what I was just feeling. That there's this component of you guys moving into this next adventure, this next chapter. And Sagittarius, I like to refer to you guys as the spiritual adventurer. And I really do feel like that is what you're stepping into right now. You are stepping into the next adventure in your life, the next chapter, but from that place of spiritual connection, from that place of spiritual growth, which as a Sagittarius, you really have that superpower. You are always working with the spiritual side of things, with the spiritual side of the collective human experience. And now it's really heightened because you're experiencing it personally. Often I don't know why I say this, but well, I do know why I say it, but I say it quite often, that you guys are like the honeybees of the Zodiac, that you get a chance to go out and through your adventurous nature kind of cross-pollinate ideas, cross-pollinate on that spiritual level of understanding the uniqueness of the individual human experience. Sagittarians are usually people who want to engage with others in different settings, different environments. You can appreciate different cultures. And that's the beauty of really where your sign holds a purpose in the greater greater collective within the Zodiac itself as well. But there is this quality here now that for you guys, life is going to be speeding up. And so it's going to take courage to act in accordance with this new spiritual awakening within yourself, because I think things are going to changes are going to be coming in quickly. And you're going to have to kind of go with the flow a little bit, which Sagittarius, you usually are pretty good with going with the flow. But there is this quality of almost like not being given the chance to catch your breath after the race before you. So again, kind of like when I'm thinking about watching some of these Olympic athletes crossing the finish line, it's like they cross the finish line and they can barely catch their breath, and there's somebody with a camera in their face who's like, "You just won, what's going on, how do you feel?" And they're like, what just happened? Did I, it's almost like, I feel like that's a little bit like what's coming through for you guys. Like there's this massive change happening that's bringing in things that are going to be happening in your external environment where you're going to have to start working with this new self very quickly. And it might feel a little scary, and it might feel like, oh my gosh, I have to juggle this and this and this at the same time, because all these things are going to require me taking new and different action now. But it's for your growth. It's for the fact. So the number 2 in numerology is all about working with others. And this really is about elevating the collective experience as much as it is elevating your own experience. So this is kind of bringing in that beautiful energy of working with others from this new perspective now. It's also a number that really denotes balance and harmony. So I feel that even though it's going to feel a little chaotic and a little bit like the microphone in your face after you've just ran a marathon and you just realized that you're the winner, that it's going to be that kind of moment of, oh, but this is what's going to actually bring what I've been feeling has been out of balance for a while into balance. Even though it's going to be a little chaotic, it's going to feel good, it's going to feel right, and it's going to feel exciting. And I think, Sagittarius, you've been needing that for a while. This shakeup of energy, this feeling of the next chapter, this coming into your own and really becoming that butterfly. Okay, now we're going to move into the final principle, which is contemplation. And contemplation is a great principle to work with because it's really where you get to connect the dots. So we get to see where we were curious and asking questions, where we decided to take action, and then we get a chance to look at, oh man, that's way too many cards. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to see if we can get a few less than 10. It's really where we get a chance to then review, okay, so what were the consequences of those actions? And this is where we get to continue to grow and evolve spiritually. And actually grow and evolve on all aspects of self, because we're constantly reflecting and taking personal responsibility for the consequences of our actions. So this is where we get a chance to really prevent ourselves from coming into a place of stagnancy where we don't want to, where we keep taking the same action and we keep getting the same negative result, but we're not actually learning from that. So this can look like getting into the same type of relationship over and over and over again, but just with different people, or being disgruntled with your work environment over and over and over again, but in different workplaces. And when we bring contemplation into the mix, this is where we get a chance to stop and say, well, wait, maybe there's, I've worked at 3 different places in the past 3 years and I've had the same result in each one. Maybe I need to look a little further into this and take responsibility on some level. And contemplation is what then connects us back to the original principle of curiosity, where we start to ask ourselves those questions again. Okay, well, what was similar about each one of these experiences? And what can I change so that when I take action the next time, I don't get the same result? And that starts with changing your actions. So perhaps you were acting in a specific way within that workplace. Well, maybe now you get a chance to act in a different way, or you get a chance to choose a different work environment, different work industry, or a difference in the way you work. Okay, so for the final point of contemplation, we have share your voice. And it says, come out of the cave, persecution, expression. Great card to have. And I think that this is just a final kind of tie up to this whole message of you guys are going through this deep internal change. And that is going to involve you having to express that to others. This is going to involve you kind of having to almost come out as this new version of self. Again, you can't go back to being the caterpillar. It's like once you've come out, you're out. It's like once you've won the race, everybody knows you won the race, and you're going to have to stand on that podium with your gold medal and have everybody see you for the new and improved version of yourself that you are, and you can't hide from that. So there's this quality of it's time to come out. There's no more hiding. No more hiding, Sagittarius. Can't be in denial of the changes that this is going to bring forward. But to be able to get past that denial, you can tap into the knowledge that whatever part of yourself has changed and whatever part of yourself you discover and work with over this month, it's going to have a dramatic shift and create, actually, even though it's through a dramatic shift and a change, it's going to bring things into balance and alignment in a way where you're going to sit there and say, oh, that's why I've been feeling so stuck, or this didn't seem to be working, or this aspect of my life I was just getting frustrated with, and it's all of a sudden going to come into balance. Even though it's going to be a kind of a flurry of energy and a flurry of decision making and a flurry of self-awareness mixed with having the courage to actually come out and express the changes. So I really feel here that Spirit is asking you to really be courageous and to come out and to share whatever new perspective, whatever new belief, whatever new change has occurred within yourself that's now leading you to want to make new decisions, take new action from that place. That this is what Spirit's asking you to do. It's time to come out. It's time for this part of yourself to be seen. You're there. All right, Sagittarius, this has been a great reading. Really uplifting. I feel uplifted and positive, and I hope that that's really what you're going to be feeling this month as well. It's going to be an exciting, I think, time moving forward for you guys. All right. If you would like to book a personal tarot reading or a one-on-one spiritual coaching session, the link to my website is in the description box below. If you would prefer to turn the spiritual one-on-one coaching session into a live tarot reading, by all means, just write that in the notes and that's what you'll get. As well as if you do not see a specific tarot reading in my services, you can book one and write in the notes what you would like to have that tarot reading specifically geared towards. Okay, my lovely Sagittariuses, I hope you all have an illuminating rest of your day and that you get a chance to check out your spiritual connection and love connection readings for the rest of the month of August. Bye, Sagittarius.